I didn't ask what the price was. I wasn't sure I wanted to know. The next morning, we continued our journey. The jungle seemed darker now, the air heavier, and the ground beneath our feet felt unstable, as if we were walking on something that didn't want us there. The sun, hidden behind thick clouds, cast a pale, sickly light over the landscape. We reached the base of a towering mountain by midday. Its jagged peaks rose high into the sky, disappearing into the mist. Kozodi stopped at the foot of the mountain and turned to us. "Beyond this mountain lies the domain of Uruku Ebema," he said, his voice low and serious. "Once we cross it, there is no turning back." The men exchanged uneasy glances, but none of us spoke. We had come too far to back down now. The climb was steep and treacherous. The rocks were slick with moss, and the air grew colder with every step. The mist thickened around us, making it difficult to see more than a few feet ahead. My legs burned with exhaustion, but Kozodi pressed on without complaint, his movements as sure and steady as ever. We reached the summit by late afternoon. The mist cleared for a moment, revealing a vast valley below, shrouded in darkness. At the center of the valley stood a massive stone structure, ancient and crumbling, its walls covered in strange symbols and carvings. "That is the temple of Uruku Ebema," Kozodi said, his voice barely audible over the howling wind. "It is said that once you enter, you will be changed forever." My heart raced as I looked down at the temple. The weight of our mission pressed down on me, and for the first time since we started this journey, I felt doubt. But there was no turning back now. We had come too far, and the knowledge we sought was within reach. Descending into the valley was even more treacherous than the climb up. The ground was uneven, the rocks jagged and unstable. More than once, one of my men slipped, only barely catching themselves on the rough terrain. The air down here felt different, heavier, thicker, as if the very atmosphere was charged with something ancient and powerful. As we approached the temple, I felt the weight of its presence. The stone walls loomed high above us, each slab of rock covered in intricate carvings that seemed to move in the flickering light. Kozodi moved forward, his gaze fixed on the entrance, a massive archway leading into darkness. "This is where you will find him," Kozodi said, stopping just outside the entrance. "Uruku Ebema waits inside." The air was colder now, and the silence was deafening. My men hesitated, their eyes filled with fear. I could see it in their faces, the doubt, the terror of stepping into the unknown. "We can't turn back," I reminded them. I stepped forward, leading my men into the temple. As we crossed the threshold, a chill swept over me, like the temple itself was alive and watching us. The light from outside faded quickly, swallowed by the darkness that pressed in from every corner. Kozodi remained close behind, his eyes scanning the walls, though his expression remained calm, unfazed by the looming shadows. The interior of the temple was vast, far larger than it seemed from the outside. Strange carvings adorned the walls, images of creatures half human, half beast, and symbols I couldn't decipher. They twisted and writhed in the torchlight, seeming to shift whenever I tried to focus on them. My men were tense, gripping their weapons tightly as we moved deeper into the heart of the structure. The sound of our footsteps echoed off the stone walls, each one growing fainter as if the temple was swallowing the noise, absorbing it into the void. After what felt like hours of walking, we arrived at a massive chamber. In the center stood a stone altar, carved with symbols similar to those on the walls. Behind it, a towering figure loomed in the shadows, its form barely discernible in the flickering light. I felt a cold wave of fear wash over me as I realized we had arrived at the domain of Uruku Ebema. Kozodi stepped forward, his voice steadied despite the tension in the air. "Uruku Ebema," he called out, "we seek your knowledge, we come in peace." For a long moment, there was no response. The chamber was still, save for the faint crackling of the torches. My heart raced as I scanned the darkness, half expecting something to lunge at us from the shadows. But then, a low rumbling echoed through the chamber, like distant thunder. "You come seeking knowledge," a voice boomed, so deep and resonant that it seemed to shake the very walls of the temple. "But knowledge has a price." Uruku Ebema stepped into the light, and my breath caught in my throat. He was enormous, his body covered in scales that shimmered like obsidian in the dim light. His face was human, but his eyes were not. They were ancient, glowing with a light that seemed to pierce through the darkness. He was neither man nor beast, but something far older, far more powerful than I had imagined. I felt my men stiffen beside me, their fear palpable in the thick air. I, too, was frozen, caught between awe and terror. Kozodi, however, remained composed. He bowed his head slightly, a gesture of respect, before stepping forward once more. "We are willing to pay the price," Kozodi said, his voice unwavering. Uruku Ebema's glowing eyes flicked toward Kozodi, and for a moment, the room was silent again, the tension hanging like a heavy mist. Then, with a low growl, Uruku Ebema spoke again. "What you seek is no simple truth. What I offer is knowledge beyond human comprehension. Once you possess it, there is no return. Are you certain this is what you desire?" I swallowed hard, my throat dry. This was what we had come for. The knowledge the elders believed could save our people. But at what cost? My men looked at me, their eyes wide with fear, waiting for me to decide. I didn't know what to say. The weight of the moment pressed down on me like a physical force. Kozodi turned to me, his eyes narrowing slightly. "The choice is yours," he said. "But know this, Uruku Ebema's knowledge is not to be taken lightly. Once you have it, your life will change forever." I closed my eyes, trying to gather my thoughts. We had traveled so far, risked so much. I couldn't turn back now, not when the survival of our people depended on it. "We are prepared," I finally said, my voice shaky but resolute. "We accept the price." Uruku Ebema let out a deep, rumbling laugh, his massive form towering over us.